Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Rising a Buddhist Oasis. It's a great honor to be here with you today. I'm Nancy, the founder of International Buddha Dharma Society for Cosmic Law in America. Today, let's talk about precepts. We will learn how precepts started in Buddhism. Precept in Pali and Sanskrit languages is called Vinaya. But first, we will learn some basic concepts. Pali and Sanskrit are the two ancient languages used to carry the Buddha's teachings. A collection of teachings is called Sutra in Sanskrit, and in Pali it's called Sutta or Suttanta. So you often say either Sutra or Sutta or Suttanta. They all mean the same. It's a collection of the Buddha's teachings. When Buddha lived in the world, Buddha had four kinds of followers, and for now it's the same. In English, there are monks, nuns, laymen, and laywomen. In Sanskrit, there are bhikshus, bhikshunis, upasakas, and upasikas. In Pali, there are bhikkhus, bhikkhunis, upasakas, and upasikas. So you know, for some words, they are the same in Sanskrit and in Pali. Buddha has many titles, countless titles in the universe, but there are 10 well-known titles. The Buddha, the well-gone one, the world-honored one, the one worthy of offerings, the teacher of gods and humans, the one who subdues and tames, the Tathagata, or the thus come one, the one perfect in clarity and practice, the one of proper and universal knowledge, the unsurpassed one who understands the world. Out of these 10 titles, there are 3 or 4 more frequently seen than the others in the sutra. The Buddha, the world-honored one, the Tathagata, or the thus come one. And so, when you see these titles in the sutra, you know they all refer to the Buddha. When Buddha lived in the world 25 to 2600 years ago, to regulate, to discipline his disciples and his followers, the Buddha made various precepts and rules which were normally set up after a certain thing happened. The Buddha left Tripitaka, in other name is Pali Canon, and the 12 categories of teachings. Tripitaka includes 3 divisions. Tripitaka in definition is the discourses of the Buddha, collected in the 1st century and arranged into 3 divisions. Vinaya Pitaka, Sutra Pitaka, and Abhidharma Pitaka. Vinaya Pitaka, the first division of the Tripitaka, it includes not only the rules governing the life of every bhikshu and bhikshuni, but also a host of procedures and conventions of etiquette that support harmonious relations, both among the monastics themselves and between the monastics and their lay supporters, upon whom they depend for all their material needs. The Sutra Pitaka contains more than 10,000 teachings attributed to the Buddha and his great disciples. As you know, the Buddha has 10 great disciples, well-known ones. Abhidharma Pitaka, the 3rd division of the Tripitaka, offers an extraordinarily detailed analysis of the basic natural principles that govern mental and physical processes, whereas the Sutra and Vinaya Pitakas lay out the practical aspects of the Buddhist path to awakening. The Abhidharma Pitaka provides a theoretical framework to explain the causal underpinnings of that very path. After the Buddha entered Nirvana, one of his disciples, his name was Upali, he recited the 80th recitation of Vinaya. During a series of assemblies of collecting the Buddha's teachings for the first time, the 80th recitation of Vinaya is the basic of Vinaya Pitaka. Later, due to different understandings, Vinaya Pitaka was not exactly the same for different sects, which was also the reason for the first split of Buddhism. We often say precepts, samadhi, wisdom, in which precepts are the foundation and the supreme wisdom is our ultimate goal. In fact, all we need to cultivate is only the precepts. If we can hold the precepts well, samadhi will deepen naturally and wisdom will reveal itself. In the volume 6 of the Shrankama Sutra it says, protecting the heart is the precept. Holding the precepts grows samadhi. Deep samadhi power sprouts wisdom, and these are called the three kinds of non-leaking cultivation. Precepts are the rules of all good dharmas. In the sutra on the Buddha's bequeathed teaching, the Buddha says, all of you bhikkhus, after my nirvana, you should revere and honor the practical moksha. Practical moksha is a list of rules contained within the Vinaya governing the behavior of Buddhist monastics. It's like finding a light in darkness, or like a poor person obtaining a treasure. You should know that it's your great teacher, and it's not different from my actual presence in the world. So the Buddha said, precepts are our teachers. Those of you who uphold the pure precepts should not buy and then sell or trade. You should not covet fields or buildings, or keep servants or raise animals. You should stay away from all kinds of agriculture and wealth, as you would avoid a pit of fire. The Buddha continued, you should not cut down grass or trees, plow fields or dig the earth, nor may you compound medicines, prophesy good and evil, observe the constellations, cast horoscopes by waxing and waning of the moon, or compute astrological fortunes. All of these activities are improper. Regulate yourselves by eating at the appropriate time and by living in purity. The Buddha continued, you should not participate in worldly affairs or act as an envoy, nor should you become involved with magical spells and elixirs of immorality, or with making connections with high-ranking people. Being affectionate towards them and condescending toward the lowly. With an upright mind and proper mindfulness, you should seek to cross over. The Buddha continued, do not conceal your faults or put on a special appearance to delude the multitudes. Know your limits and be content with the four kinds of offerings. When you receive offerings, do not store them up. This is a general explanation of the characteristics of upholding the precepts. The precepts are the root of proper freedom, therefore they are called the pratimoksha, the root of freedom. So you know, true freedom is built upon precepts. Without precepts, without true freedom. The Buddha continued, by relying on these precepts, you will give rise to all dhyana concentrations and reach the wisdom of the cessation of suffering. For this reason, bhikkhus, you should uphold the pure precepts and not allow them to be broken. If a person is able to uphold the pure precepts, he will, as a result, be able to have good dharmas. If one lacks the pure precepts, no good merit and virtue can arise. Therefore, you should know that the precepts are the dwelling place for the foremost and secure merit and virtue. Now let's look at the beginning of the precepts. Actually, in the first 12 years or so, the Buddha did not make precepts. It's because the early disciples had deep and good roots. After they heard the Buddha teachings, they obtained fruits the right way, so at the beginning, no precepts were needed to regulate the disciples because they were already clean and pure. Later on, there was one disciple whose name was Sudina. He left home to follow the Buddha after he heard the Buddha's teachings. One time, there was a great famine. Sudina went back home to get some food for the Sangha. His intention was good. His parents and his wife seized the time and persuaded him to sleep with his wife again because they needed somebody. After knowing what happened, the Buddha denounced him in public, and from then on, the Buddha started to expound precepts, and gradually more and more precepts and rules were set up. This was to maintain the Sangha clean and solemn, to protect the disciples from contaminating their heart, which was beneficial for them to become enlightened. After the Buddha rebuked Sudina, the Buddha gathered all the disciples, established precepts, declared 10 benefits from holding precepts, and said, "No killing, no stealing, no misconduct, no false speech, no wine drinking. These are the basic 5 precepts. If somebody goes against this, he must drop out from the Sangha. If he cannot keep these precepts, he may resume cellular life." The Buddha declared the establishment of precepts, which was the beginning of precepts in the proper Dharma. Precepts After Buddha made the precepts, there were still some disciples who acted against the Buddha's teachings. During a long period of time, the Buddha laid down many other precepts. So, at the end, there were about 250 precepts for bhikshus and 350 precepts for bhikkhunis. There were 10 heavy and 48 light precepts for bodhisattvas. For those lay followers, they could either take the 5 precepts or the 6 heavy and 28 light precepts to be upasakas and upasikas. Normally, the establishment of a precept had a certain background. There were many stories written in the sutras. Precepts maintained the cleanliness of the Sangha. Everybody lived according to the precepts, a life under rules. A Sangha symbolized democratic self-government. The Buddha then made the rule that every half-month all the disciples would recite the precept together and self-check their own behavior to see if anything they had done was against the precepts. If there was, then they would repent accordingly. Dharma appears according to conditions, so do precepts. There were 84 Dharma doors, and there were 84 precepts too. You often see this number, 84,000, in the sutras. They simply mean limitless or countless. Dharma and precepts are one. The above-mentioned various precepts written in words practiced by the body could be named precepts of form. Sometimes people might have the feeling that precepts are rigid and dogmatic, while the highest realm of precepts are formless and are one with Chan and Tao. The formless precepts act on the mind ground. About the formless precept, in the Maharanakutta Sutra, Puming Bodhisattva Assembly, when the Buddha was discussing what is holding precepts well with Mahakashyapa, the Buddha said, Kashyapa, for those who hold precepts well, there's no I and mine, there's no do or don't do, there's no what's done or who did it, there's no practice or not practice, there's no color or name, there's no form or non-form, there's no extinguishment or non-extinguishment, there's no take or give, there's no takeable or givable, there's no living beings or the names of living beings, there's no mind or name of the mind, there's no in the world or not in the world, there's no dependence or non-dependence. For those who hold precepts well, they don't look high of themselves because of holding precepts. They don't look down others who do not hold precepts. They don't think about or discriminate precepts. And this is the precept of what all saints hold. No linking or binding, not attached to the three realms, they are free from all dependable dharmas. What the Buddha said here is just the supreme realm of Mahayana precepts, and all the supreme Dharma door of the formless precept of Chan sect. Of course, formless precept is just like the Chan Dharma, may not be easy to understand. Precepts are rules for beginners, for those with good rules and practitioners of higher level, they can easily hold precepts without even thinking about them. The actions of their body, their mouth, and mind have gradually become one with the precepts, pure and free. Remember, precepts are the root of true freedom. True freedom is built upon abiding by rules, holding precepts. Amitabha, I'm very honored today to be here sharing precepts with you. Thank you for listening. Please let me know if you have any questions. Subscribe my channel, leave your questions, leave your kind comments. See you next time. Bye.